How can we protect our mental health whilst running our own business? On today's podcast, Kate Llewellyn joins us to talk about just that. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome back to Alison McQuinney podcast, where we have conversations about business and wellbeing success. And today I'm delighted to welcome Kate Llewellyn onto the podcast. Now, Kate is a content confidence coach, supporting small business owners to plan with purpose and create content with confidence. She helps small business owners find clarity, confidence, and joy in content creation. Kate set up the Confident Content Creators Club, an online membership that not only supports overwhelmed business owners to learn more about content creation, but also helps them to address the anxiety and imposter feelings that can sometimes show up when we need to be visible online. As well as that, Kate also organises an annual conference that offers mental health support for small business owners, sole traders, solopreneurs, in the style of a corporate wellness day with a wide range of information, takeaways, and benefits. And when I found this out about you, Kate, I felt truly inspired because mental health is talked about a lot, and particularly mental health and small businesses and working for your own company, often at home by yourself.
Yeah.
And so I just thought, wow, okay, we need to find more about this. Before founding her business, Kate was a commissioning editor in international academic publishing, leading the development of ebooks and digital content. She has a strong background in communication, project management, and team leadership. So, a warm welcome to the podcast, Kate.
Thank you very much for having me.
I would like to start off by asking, why is running a small business so stressful?
Oh, that could take up the whole podcast, couldn't
Where
it?
do we start?
There's a myriad of things. And I think it's so sad, actually, that we probably all straight away things jump into our minds of when you ask that question, rather than remembering all of the joyful reasons that we decided to run our own business. But I think the simple answer is that we are required to wear so many hats, as the old sort of cliche goes, aren't we? It doesn't matter what we love doing. It doesn't matter what service we offer, what products we sell. That's never enough. We need to understand the finance element. We need to understand the marketing element. We need to understand sales. We maybe need to understand operations and systems and all kinds of elements. And I think there's nothing else in most of our, if we've been employed beforehand or where we've had to tackle so many different things from so many different angles, all to, just bring us the outcome of having a business.
And what are your tips for managing anxiety as a business owner?
So I think a lot of anxiety comes from two things. So the first is that you do often feel quite alone. It can be whether you're actually working with others or in a team, but it can just feel lonely. Maybe you are a bit out of your depth. We mentioned just wearing, lots of different hats. So that feeling of just feeling alone, like, why don't I seem to know what I'm doing? And that old adage of everyone else seems to, know what they're doing. And I think the other anxiety is that when something's close to your heart, for a lot of us, that your business is your baby, that passion and that fear of failure, of letting yourself down, of dropping a ball, of missing something is obviously naturally going to cause a lot of anxiety and worry, whether it's simply financial, reaching sales goals, or actually just on a personal level, wanting to deliver a good service or a good product and the potential of letting people down.
And how would you know whether you're burnt out officially or just tired?
Oh, that's a really interesting one. So I think it's difficult because I think the term burnt out maybe has, it's a little bit like we used to as kids, didn't you, bandy around and say, oh, I'm so stressed. You know,
Mm.
and actually I think as you get older you really realise that there's a big difference between sort of stressed versus actually a bit busy or a bit overwhelmed. And so I think when it comes to burnout versus tiredness, I think it does often come down to like the length of time that you've been feeling like that, that those kind of common perhaps self-care methods, getting a bit more sleep, taking some rest, having time away, just isn't really fixing it. And all I would say to anyone is if you are moving from that feeling of I feel a bit tired, or is it closer to burnout? Even if you have that thought, then reach out for some help. Go and talk to somebody, whether it is just a trusted friend or obviously a professional, because I think one of my understandings of knowing people who have gone through official burnout is they always say, I just wish I'd caught it earlier. I wish I'd noticed the signs, the symptoms. So I think if there's even a little niggle in the back of your mind that maybe this is more than just a bit tired, a bit stressed, a bit, overwhelmed, then yeah, just reach out and get some help.
Absolutely. And doctors can be particularly helpful in this
Yes.
regard because sometimes when you're constantly fatigued, there's an underlying medical condition that is causing that you might not know about.
Yes.
Like if you're deficient in certain vitamins and minerals, that can cause amazing consequences,
Yes.
and is so easily fixable
Yeah. Yeah,
as
absolutely.
well.
But it's one of those that sometimes you just don't recognise it in yourself,
Yeah,
and it takes that
exactly.
conversation to bring it out. Yeah, definitely.
Now, some business owners may feel under constant financial stress. What are your recommendations for dealing with this?
So, fun enough, one of the first things I thought of when I've done some own work on myself on sort of money mindset, as well as sort of taking some support with financial mentoring and helping to understand, is actually become really obsessed with your figures. And I know that
Mm.
probably sounds a little bit counterintuitive, but I think a lot of people, and again, clients I've worked with where they have had financial difficulties, it's often come a little bit from burying our heads in the sand, kind of continuing on, thinking it's okay, not really noticing the incomings, the outgoings, those kinds of things really. And actually, I think, as I say, for me, with my own sort of financial, I say not necessarily concerns or issues, but just that mindset around, am I growing? Am I making a profit? What is my turnover? Again, all these lovely financial terms that we need to be on top of as business owners. I think, yeah, just becoming really, really comfortable, whether it's with your spreadsheet, with your accounting software, it's something that I definitely flick into at least 2-3 times a week, just checking on everything, making sure
Mm.
that everything is going in the right direction. Because fun enough, just a bit like burnout, if we catch it early, if we notice, things aren't quite lining up, when it comes to marketing and content, there's often something we can actually do about it.
Mm.
We can get out there, we can start spreading the message, we can, hopefully maybe draw in those few more leads or sales. But again, if we leave it too long, it's much harder to, reap back any deficit or anything like that as well. And I think at the end of the day, knowledge is power, right? So, knowing where you are
Absolutely.
financially as much as possible, I think can be really helpful and really underestimated, because at the end of the day, ironically, that doesn't cost much.
No, and I think it's so important to think of the narrative behind your financial figures. So, if a particular sale has gone well, why has that sale gone
Yeah.
well? What
Yeah.
factors led to those good sales? And if they've nosedived, what factors have led to those? And it could be that these are factors you can explain that are one-off, like there was a flu epidemic, so people didn't come.
Yeah.
Um, and but at least you know why.
Yeah.
And also in terms of your marketing and everything, what is converting and what isn't.
Exactly that. Just like we follow maybe like traffic or social media analytics, go up and down, and we figure
Mm.
out, yeah, do the same for your money.
Mm. Why do you feel some business owners feel overwhelmed even when things are going well?
Isn't it weird? I think there's two, again, I come back to two things. First of all, that I really do believe in a fear of success. I think there is something quite overwhelming. And a sort of classic example of this is I think many of us set quite big goals and perhaps, talking finances, financial goals, and they come and they go. We don't celebrate them. We don't notice them. We just strive. We're always striving. So I think actually, yeah, it's almost like, well, if I've reached that goal, I've got to label myself as successful. I've got to say I've done it. And, and that is, scary for some. And so it's always easier to just keep raising the bar, to keep sort of almost telling yourself, gosh, maybe I'm not quite good enough yet, or I could do better, I could do better. I think I think the other thing, unfortunately, is that I'm going to say it, but often women entrepreneurs, we're not so great at, at being really proud of what we've achieved. And so again, to earn a bit more than friends and family, to show off publicly, perhaps our businesses are often very visible, to sort of to come across as successful can some make people feel really uncomfortable. Fear of judgment that comes with that, etc. Fear of alienation as well, unfortunately, which is really, really sad, because definitely for me and my confidence angle, I want people to, to show up and to, really be proud of what they've achieved. And one of my little mantras actually is that, showing up is not showing off. And I think that's, something to a lot of people do worry about. They think they're just showing off if they talk about their success.
And I think when people do talk about their successes, for the rest of us who may know them or be in touch with them, I always think jealousy is such a wasted emotion because it just does not get the point. If one of my contacts, one of my colleagues, one of my friends is very successful at something, I'm there celebrating. But also I'm thinking, right, how did you do that? And what can I learn from you in how you did that? There's a fabulous learning opportunity right on your plate, right there.
Absolutely.
You
Absolutely.
know?
Successful business owners often just support others to be successful too. It's not in like one being successful means that you can't be. It's often, like you said, everyone rises up. And I completely agree. If you yourself see someone else being successful, I think a lot of us do think, just like you said, actually, yay, good for you. That's amazing. And it inspires us, doesn't it? Think, well, if they can do it, perhaps I can too. And like I say, if you have that relationship where you can go and ask them, what were the tips, the tricks, the things you did, then again, we're all learning and we're all going to be, we're all going to benefit from that.
I'm nosy and cheeky, and I did just that and turned it into a podcast.
There you go. Proof. Why not? Why not?
Um, how do you feel business owners can stop worrying about their businesses 24/7?
I think controversially, I'm going to say that I would actually never stop anybody thinking about their business 24/7. And as long as it fills you with joy, as long as you are loving it, you're dreaming big, you're planning out exciting new things, because I think, as I mentioned, your business is your baby. It's a bit like asking you to stop thinking about your children, your home life, isn't it? We don't naturally switch off in that way. I think the check-in is always about whether that thinking about it 24/7 is full of joy and excitement and, and experimentation and wanting to learn and do more, versus where actually it's more worry and anxiety. We've mentioned sort of financial stress and things like that as well. So if that is the case, then let's pull back. Let's really think about what we can achieve when, and if we do need the help or support, or we need to put a pause on something, then definitely. And actually, from a marketing and social media and things like that, I think that's also very different. If you are on 24/7 thinking you need to show up on social media, be interacting, be constantly available, even to your clients, that kind of thing. Being WhatsApped at all times of the night, being emails, that is something where I would say, okay, no, that's different to sort of being, thinking about your business and working on it in a positive way. Let's put some boundaries in, definitely. And if you need to, just write it down. Whether you write it down personally for yourself, or you put it all over your website, you put your out of office on, you have automated replies, that say, I will respond within, and the hours can be your choice. For some people, an evening might work better, whatever it might be, but make sure it's your choice and your boundaries.
And I think also it's important to bear in mind that life does happen, and sometimes you
Absolutely.
do need to press the pause button. And what you know and I know, but viewers won't know yet, is that this interview was scheduled a few weeks ago, and then I lost my voice. And how do you conduct a podcast when you've not got a voice? And so I just had to press pause, and I just thought it's one of those things. And when I've got my voice back, we will pick up and we will continue. And nobody's complained about it.
No, and do you know what? I think that's also a really big thing is there's kind of like that day-to-day thinking of your business 24/7. But if you know that you genuinely can't, are struggling to step away, you know, whether it is for holiday, whether it is for rest when you are unwell, whether it is even just a day off, you know, for your birthday, and you can't actually enjoy that, then again, to me, that's a real red flag that, you know, we need to look at, yeah, the way you run your business and make it work better for you, because ultimately it is going to probably lead to more unwell, you know, burnout, all the things we've talked
Absolutely.
about.
I mean, I don't think about my business 24/7 like that. And I do make time to see friends and do things and enjoy that time. But what I would say is that when I switch off and my mind is consciously on other things, which could be enjoying spending time with friends, quite often that's when the bright ideas come in and they just fall in. And I'm not consciously thinking about it, but somebody says something or I see something when I'm out, I'm thinking, oh, that could be really good for my business.
Yeah,
And it just
absolutely.
happens.
Mine is so often the dog walk, and it's meant to be, you know, my break in the middle of the day to get myself away from the office, you know, and from my desk. And what do? I'm out on, and like you said, these blog ideas come into my head, these content ideas. You suddenly remember you should have emailed someone. So yeah, I am with you that, you know, it doesn't matter what we do. But again, I always get back to my desk feeling energized with all of these new ideas. So I kind of take that as a bit of a positive as well.
Yeah, I record it into my phone so I
Yeah,
don't forget.
same.
Why do some business owners feel very lonely, do you feel?
I think it's partly because not some of us have a really, really good network, and you might know lots of other self-employed or sole traders or business owners as well. However, a lot of those people that we know, it is maybe through like a networking group, or so it's not necessarily people that we see that regularly, or even in a kind of like we just talked about, you know, sort of a friendly meetup. So actually, you do have people that know what's going on, but they're not right there all of the time. So for most of us, what we have is the opposite of people who are surrounded, especially like friends and close family, and that they are employed. They don't have to deal with day to day what we do. And I think what's really sad from the loneliness element is that actually there are quite a lot of misunderstandings for people who have never run a business, that, you know, oh, isn't it wonderful? You set your own hours, you don't have a boss, you work when you want, you can go out for coffee, you know, this sort of beautiful rose tinted glasses version. And I think again, with the element of like thinking about whether you're successful or not, you know, sometimes we feel like we've got to keep up that persona, like, yes, I run my own business, it's brilliant and wonderful, and that can actually make you feel really, really lonely if maybe you don't fully feel like that, but that's the way you feel like you should be turning up. Or yes, you've got these people who are kind of like, you know, what have you got to complain about? You've got all this freedom that I don't have. So that can be very difficult. I think the other thing as well is that just a lot of us do work, you know, myself included, at a desk on my own, you know, and we forget. I think COVID was obviously a really good thing for making us realise that actually it's not so fun every day, and actually it's quite a big deal who, you know, to fill that gap. If you're not surrounded, especially if you used to work in corporate as well, so you're used to having those kind of the office and the colleagues and the social events that are organised and the workshops and, you know, that naturally forced almost interaction, and then suddenly, yeah, you're just sat at a desk on your own, it can be really hard. And I mean, personally, networking, going out and meeting people, you know, has been, you know, definitely part of my small business owner journey. But again, with what I do, so many people find that really, really hard as well. So they are, you know, they are literally alone, as well as maybe feeling a little bit isolated from, you know, from those around them.
I mean, networking is something I do, and I'm a member of about four organisations that do networking in different ways.
Yeah.
And I find they always convert into something.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
agree.
not the
Friendship,
whole
if
room,
nothing else, right?
obviously,
Yeah,
but
yeah. No,
you know, I go to a meeting and usually there's at least one conversion
yeah,
into something business wise for me,
yeah,
just for
agreed.
chatting. And as you stay with that group for longer, you do actually get to know people as friends and people who will have a greater understanding of what it's like because they're in the same boat often
Yeah.
as well.
Absolutely. And to be honest, that was what, you know, where the mental health day came from, was a lot about just getting everyone in a room that can all look at each other and go, yeah, I get it. And I
Yeah.
get if you feel alone. And if you are ever alone, call on me, give me a shout. I do get it. And I completely agree, actually. I think there's a different sort of side to networking where you just go along to a one-off and you maybe understandably you try different groups and things, and those where you do become a member and you form those relationships and those collaborations and stuff like that, which can really help with loneliness,
Yeah,
definitely.
absolutely. What do you recommend? How can business owners stay motivated when business is slow?
Oh, I think given the time of year, that's very pertinent, isn't it? For some businesses, definitely, I know sort of that Christmas wind down and then the early January, it can be really, really difficult. I think when business is slow, it is a little bit about going back to the basics. So, what were your goals for this year? What did you want to achieve? And how can you get yourself there? And, I suppose I would say this, but I think marketing is actually quite a good, place to start. What have you done to make sure that, you're visible, that people know what you offer? And actually, again, I know some of us, cringe at the thought, but that lead follow up, that really classic, okay, I'm going to go and find, that person that maybe got in touch with you, but hasn't been, you replied and they didn't respond and things like that. Just go back. I think a lot of us forget, especially when we're busy and things are going really well, that there are lots and lots of opportunities and places for us to look to help, push our business a little bit. And when things are quiet, being quite proactive, I think, in terms of like those lead follow up, picking up the phone, actually, just like we said, reaching out to your network, talking to people, saying, I love the question, who do you know who? Who do you know who might be interested in working with me, or who do you know who might be able to help me? I think is really, really powerful. So, take that to heart, that when business is slow, I always believe there are always little things that we can do to hopefully just get the ball rolling again.
I agree. I mean, part of my business is cyclical.
Mm.
I would never organise an event in December, for example, because there's just too much else going on. Um, but that is a fabulous time for looking at, okay, what events do I want to run
Yeah,
next year? Looking up the venues, getting the bookings in, looking at what marketing I will be doing, getting that content written in advance, and just really doing all the background work so that when times pick up, you're just ready to launch and you can just keep
absolutely.
launching.
And I think, anyone who's listening who maybe is at the beginning of their business journey, it does ebb and flow. We have peaks and troughs, like you say. Sometimes it's really mapped to the year. Other times it's just the way business is going. And, and whether it is because of work you've done in the past that's come to fruition, your marketing, your visibility, or whether, just external things are happening. And I think you're absolutely right. It's sort of a little bit like hold your nerve and use that
Mm.
time as productively as possible. I used to teach people to write blog posts, and a lot of people, I can't write one once a month. It's, too much to do. And I used to say, well, like you said, batch write them when it's a nice quiet
Mm.
time. You could write about Christmas at Easter. It's absolutely fine,
Exactly.
that content, and it's all
Exactly.
there ready for when, maybe it is a busy time or vice versa. So yeah, there's
I've
always
got
stuff we can do.
some contacts who I want to bring on the podcast who I do know. And I haven't asked them yet because I've got a steady schedule at the moment. But I've already researched them. I've already got the questions lined up so that when I do approach them and hopefully they say yes, I can just roll with it straight away and there's
Yeah.
no delay. And it just makes such a difference because you're building on that momentum after that first approach.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And actually, I think that's a great top tip, actually, is whether it's just like a note, it's just a little list of things
Mm.
that you can do when things are quiet. And, it might be that you have that lovely situation where you never have a quiet time but there's something about not getting overly worried, not spiraling, and actually thinking, yeah, no, when it's quiet, just look at all those lovely list of things I'm going to do to make them feel, really productive.
What tips do you have for business owners in dealing with the emotional ups and downs in business?
Oh, I feel like a bit of a fraud answering that, Alison. I am definitely not very emotionally stable. The best advice I mentioned about doing some mindset work. I think the best advice I was ever given actually was to sit with an emotion. I think a lot of us, I mean, I know definitely myself, I throw myself into kind of activity. If things aren't going right, I'm a bit and I can definitely, to my own detriment, go into a bit of hustle mode to almost override that emotion of worry or whatever I'm feeling. So I think, probably the best advice I was ever given was just to pause, just to see, sometimes when things are going not so well, just sit with it. And actually, we've just been talking about, right, what can I do practically to, help me get out of this feeling? Equally, and I don't think we do this enough in business, take a moment to celebrate when you feel really good. Take a moment, because the emotional roller coaster is up and down. And again, I don't think we pause enough to really celebrate, to, take a moment to realise that we actually are, our business is bringing us real joy. Something like at the end of this, for me, I try and always just take a moment and just go, oh, that was really good. I really enjoyed that. And I think there's something to be said, as I say, just sometimes just slowing it down a bit, sitting with those feelings, and potentially, especially if they are a bit on the negative side, have a little reflection. What are they showing you? What are they telling you? I think one of the big underestimated things in sort of generally in business, but also within our well-being, is sometimes that gut instinct, that gut, like, yeah, something's not right, or actually, yeah, this is really right for me. And I think sometimes just allowing sort of the peace of mind to hear those things is really important.
I think that's so important, using your feelings as indicators
Yeah.
and messages, if you like, about a certain situation. I sometimes find that sleeping on it helps. I
Yeah.
just think I'm not going to do anything more on this today, but I'm going to sleep and I'm going to see what comes up in the morning. And
Yeah.
quite often that period of rest helps me to see things more clearly and levelly, and then look at where I need to take action
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
in a focused
Actually,
way.
yeah, actually, one of the things for me, because I obviously background as a copywriter and writing, is actually my other one is journaling it out. Just keep writing, aim for at least a page, or aim for at least sort of 10 minutes, and just
Yeah.
keep going, because that also can really sort of, yeah, it's amazing what comes out. And so often I think as well, that kind of like initial emotion, there's something even more going on underneath it. And again, like you said, sleeping on it, journaling, going for that walk, can actually make us see a bit more clearly what was sort of driving that initial sort of fear or anxiety or what have you.
Can failure or setbacks affect business owners' mental health long term?
Definitely. And definitely if they accumulate, it can be really, it can be really hard. It's lovely to think that, failure is, it's just learning, and I genuinely believe that. But yes, if you are getting to the point where it feels like failure upon failure, if you feel very unsupported, if you are, going down a black hole and just feeling like there's no way out, then definitely we have got to be really, really aware of that. And I think, again, because we're not sat in an office, very many of us, surrounded by people who maybe will be noticing your mood, or noticing this kind of day on day sort of trajectory, sort of downward trajectory of how you're feeling, then yeah, it really can unfortunately get to you. And there's a lot of self-blame in, when you're a business owner, because at the end of the day there's no one else to blame necessarily, even when actually there are so many things out of our control. There are so many variables that we don't, we can't necessarily mitigate. And so I think, yeah, it is something to be really, really aware of. And something that's come out of the mental health day is that we sort of go through our kind of our red flag list, our kind of, what are the signs and symptoms for us? So very personal to you, where things aren't going so great within the business, when is it getting serious and actually becoming more of a mental health issue, rather than a bit of a, oh, darn it, things aren't quite going as I planned.
Do you find that self-worth can become entangled in business performance? And if so, how do you untangle that?
Oh, hugely. Hugely. I mean, we've talked about finances. I mean, it doesn't matter what you do as a job, right? Unfortunately, in our society, a lot is put on, how much you earn, how much money you get, turnover, profit, etc. And then, yes, presenting yourself as a successful business owner and what that means to you as a person. Again, we see it, don't we, in leadership and management and things like that. It's very wrapped up on, who we are and our self-worth. And it's, yeah, how do we untangle it? To an extent, I don't think we can. And I I don't want people to be despondent, but for many of us, we are passionate people. We do our, the services we offer is because we love what we do, and we are the best person to do it because of who we are as a person. So we can't. But having said that, make sure you define your self-worth in words and by what's the word, sort of data that is right for you. I often say, like, happiness is the highest form of success. So it doesn't matter about money, doesn't matter about numbers, doesn't matter about number of clients, doesn't matter about the number of followers on Instagram. You know, does this bring me joy? Am I happy? Do I wake up every day and want to sit at my desk and do my job? Yes.
Mm.
Okay.
That's such a huge indicator, isn't it?
And I know
Such a huge.
for some people, they go, I can't work with that. Happy's too random. But then find yours, you know, find your thing
Yeah.
that brings you the joy, brings you that sense of self-worth. And, you know, yeah, whatever it might be, but find it. And then again, it's just check in with it, just check in with it and be like, yeah, this feels good today. And it's not, you know, 100% of the time, of course, but that should be the majority, right?
It's funny because some people have commented on my business and said, oh, that's a very interesting combination of activities that you do. And I looked at it and I thought, well, actually, these are all activities I really enjoy doing. And I've
Yeah.
created my own happy program and put it into the business.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And that makes you feel great as a person, right?
Yeah,
You're doing things that you enjoy, you're helping people to do that. So, yeah,
yeah.
fabulous.
What's your advice for business owners handling criticism or negative feedback without spiraling downwards?
Yes. I think my first bit of advice is just who is giving you that
Yes.
criticism? And I don't mean to be harsh. They might be a very lovely person, but is this an opinion that truly matters? And then, if it is, because sometimes that does happen, I would always encourage, if you can, dig deeper, because sometimes we can, again, with my language and linguistics background, it's so easy to misinterpret what somebody actually meant and to interpret something as a lot more self-critical or judgmental than actually even that person meant. So
Mm.
if they are really someone who means something to you and their opinion does matter and you value their experience or their knowledge, I think anybody that's coming at you with any kind of criticism or judgment will have a really good reason if you have that mutual respect and that mutual. So go and ask them, and I bet you'll find they'll be like, no, I didn't. I was just suggesting this, because I think good old negativity bias, right? We like to see that, oh yeah, they were having a go, and actually sometimes they genuinely think, maybe not, but they think they are trying to help. So don't be afraid to. So if it's someone who you respect, you care about, you're hurt by that, maybe go and see if you can talk to them and unpack that and ask them for their advice and their support to help you. Flip side, if it's not somebody that genuinely deserves your respect or has the expertise or the judgment or knows the full story, whatever it is, please rise above it. Please, again, simple little bit, sit with that upset, sit with that judgment, but then reflect on it and go, is this going to help me? Having all these thoughts in my head, is that going to drive me forward? Is it going to support my business? And finally, have you got lots of positive comments that counteract the single? Because again, the old negativity bias, the amount of people that I speak to that have had loads of brilliant testimonials, they've got emails that say they're wonderful, and they get one-star review, even from like a spam person, and that's the thing that takes up all of their headspace. And so I always say to people, no, focus on the positive, go and counteract that one negative with all of the positive, and you're often in a much better headspace after that.
Yeah. I think what you say about evaluating the source and the content is so important, because in businesses that I have run, in particular for other people, at one point I was running a venue, and I used to deliberately have coffee with our regular customers
Yeah.
and just say to them, how's it working for you? And
Yeah.
can I have your feedback? And I was proactive in asking for it. So if I got slapped in the face, I deserved it in many respects. But I was deliberately asking because I wanted for the customer perception to come
Yeah.
through. Because I felt, well, we think we're doing a great job in setting up what we've set up, but are we? And how does it work for you? And what I found with those coffees is they were always really, really beneficial. And I heard about what was going well. But quite often, new business ideas came up through their suggestions that we hadn't
Definitely.
thought about.
Yeah.
And so that kind of quote criticism was just so empowering and business development potential, you know. So it was really, really good. But these were people I respected.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that, you know, evaluating, has the person got a point? And if not, maybe you need to explain something better to them.
Yeah, I was about to say exactly the same actually. And that's the other thing as well. Sometimes people criticize or judge because they don't know the whole story. They're just
Yes.
coming at it from their point of view. And like you said, you know, I know someone says to you, oh, I really wish the coffee was cheaper. And you're thinking, well, unfortunately, it's just gone up in price. Our supplier, you know, da, 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 and there's all these other factors. And again, if you have the opportunity of explain this and they go, oh, right, oh, well, actually, the coffee's quite a good price then, you know, and you kind of have completely reframed their criticism. So, yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, and I'm with you. I think we've said about, you know, worrying about it making you feel bad, but actually don't be afraid to ask for feedback. And especially when you have control, to ask, you know, clients you've worked with, formal clients that you have good relationships with, you know, people like you said that respect you, that have, you know, had experience actually working with you, and find out what you say. But even then, we don't have to do or change, you know, just because they've said.
No.
It is just for you, for your knowledge, for your learning, you know, and implement what you can.
And also sometimes people who don't work in your niche don't actually have an
Oh,
understanding of all the pieces that need to be put into place before you get that
hugely.
result,
Yeah. Yeah,
and why you might
hugely.
do something a particular way.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
What tips do you have for achieving good work-life balance for business owners?
So I was given the best advice about work-life balance, and that is that we don't call it work-life balance. We call it work-life blend. And I really like this because, especially
Mm.
when I was a mum with young children, and I definitely never felt like I'd got anything right, and you know, and it was never balanced. You know, it was never like there was sort of an added sort of element of balance meant perfection, you know, like you nailed it. And I had a coffee with this lovely friend and she said, no, I call it work-life blend. And so that's my first thing I will say. That's my biggest tip, is don't think about constantly trying, just like you said, things happen, right?
Mm.
Sometimes our business needs more of our attention because it just does, partly maybe because good and happy and exciting things are happening. And other times you know, our life, children, family, whatever it might be, also needs more of our attention. So what I always say is, like, just keep looking and seeing if that blend is right. If one is definitely overtaking the other and you feel like I felt, which is where you're never getting either right, then yeah, we need to look at it. But sometimes evaluate, actually right now my work needs more of me, whether it's headspace or time. Other times, you know, family needs me. So that's
Sure.
my top tip: work-life blend.
And what tips do you have for business owners on setting boundaries with customers and clients?
So I think the biggest learning from my own business is do it from the start.
Mm.
Set really, really clear boundaries from the start, because I think it's so much harder with, you know, with a client you've been working with a while. Maybe there's a bit of scope creep, whether there is, you know, just a little bit of too much comms outside of sort of normal working hours or whatever it is. I think it's so hard to then sort of go, oh, please, you know, can I now put these boundaries in place? So if you can, personally, I'm, you know, run group programs, I have a membership, you know, part of the onboarding is always to really explain what the boundaries are. And
Mm.
then I think what's really nice for you as the business owner is then, if you decide to slightly extend those boundaries because you feel like, you know, this person particularly needs you at a certain time, or they explain that their work-life blend is not quite where it wanted to be, you can then make that, you know, concession. You
Mm.
can offer to, yeah, okay, I'll take that call of an evening, or I'll, you know, I'll do that thing on a Saturday. But they know that that is kind of their privilege, and their, you know, and you actually sort of going that little extra mile rather than it ever becoming the norm. And again, I think there's no harm, should you offer to do that on your terms, that you then put back in place to go, okay, this is a short-term thing, or, you know, you agree where that stops. And the other thing I would say is that, you know, that really can be on a case-by-case, you know, case-by-case basis. You know,
Mm.
again, great thing about being a business owner working for ourselves, you know, we can adapt and change to the people we work with. And, you know, we can have boundaries for particular projects, particular clients, particular things. But yeah,
Mm.
my definite recommendation, as I say, learned the hard way, is just have a process in place which very clearly states it right from the beginning.
I mean, one thing I have done right from the beginning is encourage people to email me rather than phone me.
Yeah,
And that isn't about being aloof, it's just about being practical. Because if I'm doing a recording like I am now, I can't have the phone going half a dozen times during the recording. Um, a lot of my work is meetings, either in person or on Zoom. And if I'm meeting someone, I like them to feel they've got 100% my attention. And one of the other activities I do is healing as well. So if you're in the middle of giving someone healing, you can't really stop mid-flow to take a phone call. So it's all for practical reasons. And even if it's someone emailing me saying, "Can we have a chat?" I'll arrange a time for that chat that doesn't interrupt anything.
yeah.
But I've just found in terms of operations, I need to do that because otherwise you get some people who are never off the phone and are calling at bonkers times as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like clients' point of view, I know I'd much rather pick up the phone to somebody and and know that they're probably going to be available and they're happy to talk to me than that I've interrupted something or that they're not right in, and we've all done it. You take the call while you're still doing something else and you're not,
Mm.
and that's worse for you and the client. So yeah, I think boundaries work both ways. It makes us as the client feel much safer and know, like with you, Alison, we're not going to interrupt you. We're not going to do something that is counter to our good relationship,
Yeah.
basically.
So when I do have a phone or a Zoom with somebody, they have got 100% my attention. I'm
Exactly.
in the room and I'm listening full on to whatever it is they want to talk about.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to do several things at once. And I found that particularly important because some of these podcasts have gone international. So when I've been doing interviews with people, for example, in the United States, that's quite often an evening recording
Yes.
because of time differences. So
Yeah.
I'm not working a strict 9 to 5.
Yeah.
When
But
you've
it's
got,
on your terms, isn't it? And it
yes,
works for you. Yeah.
yes.
No, love that.
How can we find mental health support as an entrepreneur?
Oh, so this is literally the sort of one of the questions that gave rise to our mental health and small business one day conference, because I was talking to a friend who is now the co-organizer. She's a qualified counsellor, and fun enough, the actual conversation started with that she was really wanted to get into corporates and to be part of their well-being days and maybe listed on the have you heard of an employee assistance program, your EAP and all of this. And it's so funny because that was I was like, hang on a minute, me, small business owner, my own mental health support for me meant to go? Like, what am I meant to do? And even for someone who I feel has met lots of fellow business owners and knows about lots of sort of well-being practitioners, I didn't have that to hand. I didn't have that sort of much. So my best recommendation is create that when you're in maybe a good headspace. Look around, see what is, be really mindful, for whatever, of what is out there to support you. And particularly my advice is to stuff you're drawn to, because I think what's difficult and what's come out of the conference over the years is, there's a lot of chat about sort of things like self-care and have a bath and light a candle and I know, even myself, I don't want a bath. That's the word. Oh, it's never warm enough. I don't, it's never quiet enough. It's not my thing. So go and figure out what is right for you and what you think you would need. And if you're someone who loves to talk and you could really see yourself benefiting from something like talking therapy, is great. But also for those that you think, I would absolutely recoil at having to share all my innermost feelings, look at the alternative therapies that are out there for you. And as I say, if you can do it before things get bad, that's my top advice. Create your own employee assistance program. Just have a list of things that you would do, people that you would reach out to, and then whether it's organizations or business as well that you could actually invest in if you needed that mental health support, because there's something about just knowing that toolkit is there can be really, really powerful.
Mm. I mean, I take myself off, even though I run retreats, I take myself off to other people's retreats,
Yeah.
um, where I'm the customer and I just get totally into whatever they're providing. So that can be meditation and mindfulness, and just let somebody else take the lead in that and just benefit from that. And I always come back feeling very refreshed.
Yeah. And I think you, well-being like practitioners are just incredible at that, because a lot of you, as part of your training, aren't you, kind of
Mm.
are taught that, you don't want to have back-to-back clients because you need space in between to sort
Mm.
of, heal yourself or to refresh yourself and things like that. And also, as you said, you end up with more of a community of fellow, and I'm not saying everyone's got it perfect, but, certainly I always really respect that about, you guys as well-being practitioners actually saying, yeah, I haven't got all the answers. I'm not the most zen person in the world all the time. I reach out to others in my
Mm.
profession to get help for me. And I think it's something that, again, as small business owners outside of the well-being sphere, we got a lot to learn about that, and about, saying, yeah, I do need a break, and I know where to turn and what to do when I need that break. Because I think a lot of us don't really think about it. We don't think about what is the one thing that would make us feel better.
I'd like to turn now to this amazing conference that you organise every year. Now, the key themes for the 2025 conference included running a small business can be lonely, meet up with those who understand, help remove the stigma from speaking openly about mental health, invest in yourself, your business, and your well-being, learn new things to help yourself and your employees, and raise money for local mental health charities. And I looked at that agenda and I thought, my goodness, that is a powerful agenda and so on point.
Yeah.
So my question for you now is what's happening in 2026? What are your plans? How can people register for it?
Yeah,
And just talk
absolutely.
us through that.
Yeah, sure. So the 2026 event will be on Monday, the 12th of October, 2026. So get that date in your diary. We always run it as close to International World Mental Health Day as possible. So yes, we run the same format every year, because I think, again, when we're already talking about things like mental health and well-being, which can be difficult for some people, there's something really lovely about coming along to something and you know what to expect. So the themes, in some ways, like the overarching themes of bringing people together, of just talking more openly about the things that maybe do cause us worry and anxiety, even on a quite a light level, not necessarily, serious mental health issues, although we are definitely, we do definitely cover these things as well, all stand, and that is absolutely the ethos. And what I love about the conference is that it's all about bringing together, yes, the wellbeing professionals, the mental health professionals, the counsellors, etc., they're in the room, but it's just as important to hear from the everyday small business owner, because actually there's a lot of power in connecting with each other in that way. And as I said earlier, going, oh, you brilliant. So
Yeah.
that's really nice. So it's all about that information sharing. And then, just as in the last 3 years, we have panel discussions. For 2026, our first panel is going to be all about the signs and symptoms. So going a bit back to basics, because I think we can never be reminded enough of those little early red flags, early signs. And what we like to do is look at that both from you personally, but also spotting signs in others, because a lot of us, we have lovely clients, we work with, lots of different people, and actually maybe just asking that pertinent question of, how are you today, really, can be really, really powerful. We're doing a second panel this year, which is something we've not done before, so it's going to be really interesting. Is we're going to talk about transition and change, because a lot of the feedback we got from last year was that people either in business are finding things are really moving on, obviously the joy of AI, but also the economy, and people are having to really change the way that they work, potentially, from doing it for many, many years in the same way, and now the turning point has come and they've had to change. But also personally, people talking about, maybe dealing with elderly parents, with children growing up, moving on, partners perhaps changing jobs or changing roles, etc. So we're going to talk about transitions and change and how that can look from many different angles. And then our final panel is going to be all about, funny enough, just what we've been talking today, because it's so powerful and it's such a big area of concern, I should say, is money and finance and money mindset and the psychology behind money, as well as just the kind of financial stress and pressure and the joys of whether it's tax, VAT, whatever else that, on the headline of that, it's like it's just a financial matter. But again, so often it does affect us mentally and, and the whole thing that comes up around our worth and things like that as well. So we have these 3 panel sessions which are run just like, think BBC Question Time, Fiona Bruce, but we have a lovely set of panelists, so a mix of professional health professionals and also small business owners. We also have roundtable discussions, we have exhibitors, we have the chance to network, we have a nice long lunch. So, we practice what we preach. This is not a day to feel stressed and worried, it's a day to feel supported. And ultimately to go away with hopefully some more connections and sort of positive things that we can do to support our mental health and our well-being. You mentioned where to get tickets. There is a website. I'm sure we can share all the links. You can buy your early bird ticket now. And yeah, we'd love to welcome you.
Perfect. How can people find out more about you and get in contact with you? Also from your content side of the business as well, so we can promote that too.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd say, well, make sure you've got all the details for the mental health day. As for me, myself, find me at www.thecontentconsultancy.com. All of my different content confidence services are listed there. And then otherwise, I am on most of the platforms, but I'm most active over on LinkedIn. So yeah, do come and connect with me. Love to hear what everyone's up to.
Well, this has been a fabulous conversation, Kate. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast, and lots of top tips there for small business owners to take away and hopefully improve their mental health. Thank you so much.
No, thank you for having me. It's been really wonderful to talk about these things, as you can tell, really passionate about. So thank you.
Lovely stuff. Thank you. If you like this channel, please do hit the subscribe button. That would be so appreciated. Thank you.